It began with silence across the stars, the kind of silence that was not peace but something waiting to breathe. Something heavy, patient and alive, a silence that came only after betrayal. For years, the Treaty of Sol had been the fragile line between life and extinction. The agreement that kept Earth and the Galactic Council from burning each other out of the sky. It had ended the longest war the stars had ever seen, a war that began with fear and ended with exhaustion, when both sides finally realized that humanity would rather die on its feet than kneel to anyone. The Council called it peace, humanity called it survival, and for 70 long years that peace held, uneasy but real. Humans dismantled their great fleets, grounded their dreadnoughts beneath oceans, sealed the shipyards on Mars, and promised never to send soldiers beyond the moon again. The universe breathed easier knowing the Death Worlders had finally gone quiet. But peace built on fear never lasts, it only sleeps. The first crack came quietly, a whisper on military channels no one was supposed to use. An unauthorized council patrol had crossed into human space. They claimed it was a navigational error, a routine scan of disputed zones. But there were no disputed zones left. Every inch of Sol had been human for centuries. Yet that morning above the red deserts of Mars, the sky turned crimson as alien engines roared, their silver hulls blotting out the dawn. The colonies saw them first, the settlers who had built domes over the dust and called it home. They watched through glass walls as council destroyers descended in perfect formation, weapons armed but not firing, and the lead ship broadcast a message in sterile, calm tones. "This is a containment inspection. Remain in place, do not resist." The humans obeyed, they always did. They believed the treaty still meant something. But when the ships reached low orbit, they opened fire. The bombardment was fast, precise, and absolute. Orbital rails rained molten fire across the settlements, tearing through domes, cracking reactors, turning entire districts into sheets of glass. Within an hour, half the colony was gone. Comlines screamed with emergency calls, thousands begging for rescue, but no one could answer. Earth's fleet had been dismantled decades ago. The few defense stations still online could only watch helplessly as Mars burned. The last broadcast from Colony 9 showed a young girl staring at the red horizon before the feed cut to static. Then silence. Total silence. The kind that presses against your chest like weight. The kind that changes the air itself. On Earth, the news hit like a pulse, not of panic but of disbelief. No one wanted to believe the Council had done this. Not after the decades of promises, after all the ceremonies and treaties carved into stone. Yet the transmissions could not lie. The orbital satellites caught everything. The Council markings, the fleet signatures, the command codes. They had come into Sol armed. They had fired without provocation. They had broken the treaty. The world expected speeches, retaliation, threats, but none came. The United Earth Assembly convened behind closed doors and did not emerge. The generals gave no interviews. The media repeated the same phrase again and again, incident under investigation. But every human knew what that meant. They had been betrayed. That night, the cities of Earth went dark, not from fear but from choice. The power grid slowed, the traffic lights faded, the oceans reflected stars sharper than they had in a century. From orbit, Earth looked dead, and somewhere far below the surface, beneath the frozen plains of Antarctica and the trenches of the Pacific, ancient machines stirred, forgotten systems humming after generations of silence, not weapons exactly, but memories of them, guardians of an age when Earth had been ready for extinction and built the impossible to prevent it. No one on the surface knew they were waking. No one alive even remembered their names, but the planet did. The planet remembered everything. Meanwhile, the Council scrambled to justify the attack. Their broadcast called it a tragic error, a miscommunication, a malfunction. Every excuse except the truth. Their ambassadors swore that no order to fire had been given, that the human colonies had been shielding illegal research, that the destroyers had misinterpreted defense signals. The galaxy's audience believed them, because the galaxy wanted to believe them. To admit fault meant admitting fear. But deep inside the Council chambers, panic whispered, because something strange had begun happening to their fleet. Ships that participated in the Mars attack reported systems flickering, sensors showing ghosts in deep space, AI units refusing to obey commands, navigation coordinates shifting on their own, and on every corrupted display one line appeared, glowing in faint blue text. Treaty of Sol. Article 1 violated. The captains thought it was human hacking. impossible given Earth's isolation. Yet the message kept appearing, even on ships that had never entered human space. On Mars. When the fires finally died, rescue teams found something they couldn't explain. Among the ruins of Colony 9, the words we remember were burned into the desert floor, not carved by tools or etched by plasma, but fused into the rock itself by heat far beyond any weapon's capacity. The letters stretched for miles, visible from orbit, and when the Council scientists analyzed the pattern, they found that the energy signature didn't match any known technology. It was organic, almost like the planet itself had branded the message, as if Mars was speaking on behalf of its dead. Across the solar system, whispers began spreading through the remaining human colonies. Stories of old satellites turning on by themselves, of long-dead communication arrays transmitting signals no one could trace, of faint voices on every channel whispering coordinates that led nowhere. The Council dismissed it as hysteria. But those who had fought the last war, the old veterans who had seen what humans could do when cornered, knew better. They remembered the last days before the truce, when the Council's fleets had burned across the asteroid belt and found nothing but wreckage, only to discover weeks later that those wrecks had been decoys, that the real human fleets had already slipped away into the shadows of the outer planets. Those veterans whispered a name that hadn't been spoken in decades, the quiet ones, human defense systems that didn't answer to any command. Not even human ones built in the final hours of the war as Earth's last line of deterrence. Machines that were never supposed to wake again. As the Council debated, humanity watched in silence, no protests, no retaliation, no demands. The people of Earth went to work. The factories that had once built starships began producing again, quietly, unnoticed, their output recorded as energy infrastructure repairs. But anyone who looked close enough could see the pattern. Armored plating, fuel cores, guidance systems, pieces of something vast being built in the shadows. And still the world leaders said nothing, only releasing a single statement to the Council. 12 words that froze the galactic markets overnight. We acknowledge your apology, but the treaty is no longer yours to keep. Then came the quiet, a silence deeper than before, the kind that hums beneath the skin, a stillness that feels like inhaling before the scream. Earth's networks went dark, its satellites shifted into strange new orbits. Every human channel fell offline at once, even civilian frequencies. And when the Council tried to re-establish contact, their transmissions bounced back, not jammed but reflected, carrying their own words twisted and returned as static. Every attempt to scan the planet failed. The entire Sol system became a dead zone of interference, like a fog that devoured sound. And within that fog something was moving, slow, deliberate, unseen. Council probes sent to investigate never returned. The last transmission from the final drone captured a glimpse of Earth's surface from orbit, the clouds swirling unnaturally, forming perfect circular patterns across continents, and beneath them, flashes of light pulsing in rhythm, like the heartbeat of something vast. Across the galaxy, fear began to spread. Trade routes closed. Colonies whispered about omens, about the humans going silent again, and every civilization remembered the same thing. Silence from Earth was never peace. It was preparation. The same quiet that had preceded their last war. The same breath the universe had heard before the Death Worlders rose and rewrote the balance of power. The same quiet that had ended empires, and now, as the stars looked toward the blue planet once more, that silence had returned, patient and waiting, heavy with meaning. For the Council had broken the treaty, and in doing so, they had awakened something that no one in the galaxy could ever silence again. The first attack was supposed to end with Mars, but Mars was only the beginning. The Council thought they could hide their mistake under bureaucracy and silence, but humanity's silence was different. It was not fear, it was focus, and beneath that quiet something ancient began to stir. While the galaxy debated and argued, strange things began happening across the human colonies. The red sands of Mars still glowed with radiation, but under its surface machines long buried began to awaken. Old human defense grids, deactivated since the Treaty of Sol, powered up without command, lights flickering through underground tunnels, activating systems no one alive remembered how to build. Satellites that had gone dark decades ago started transmitting again, not toward Earth but outward toward the void. Each signal low, rhythmic, pulsing like a code. And though no alien ship could interpret it, every transmission carried the same pattern. Heartbeat intervals 1-2-1-2, steady and slow, as if something was alive beneath the planet's skin, watching, waiting. When the Council's fleet returned to investigate what they had done, their sensors showed nothing unusual. Mars was dead, its atmosphere calm, its orbit stable, but as soon as their ships descended into low orbit, every system on board flickered, guidance failing, navigation spinning, and then one by one the ships began to drop. Not attacked, not destroyed, just falling. Like something had reached up and tugged them down. One vessel, the Serene Light, managed to transmit a distress call before it vanished beneath the storm clouds. The captain's voice was shaking. "We're being pulled. There's something under the dust, structures moving, then static. A flash of light and silence when the Council tried to recover the wreckage. There was nothing left, not even a signal bounce. It was as though the entire fleet had been swallowed whole, and in their place, the satellites detected words burned into the surface once more. Enormous, stretching across the plains. You broke the peace. The Council tried to hide it, labeling the incident as natural magnetic disturbance, but fear had already spread among the ranks, because ships not even near Mars started malfunctioning. Vessels patrolling Jupiter's moons, civilian transports around Saturn, even deep space probes on the edge of Neptune's orbit, all of them reported the same anomaly. Their instruments picking up strange interference patterns, perfectly timed pulses matching human heartbeat intervals. Technicians tried to jam it, decode it, block it, but the signal was too deep, buried in every layer of their systems, as if the code had been written into the metal itself. And that was when the whispers began among the alien crews. They said Mars wasn't cursed, it was waking up. That the humans had hidden something beneath every planet they'd settled, something that listened and remembered, an echo of their war that had never truly gone to sleep. Back on Earth, the world remained unnervingly quiet. The global network stayed dark. No ships launched, no transmissions escaped. Yet above the atmosphere, strange formations appeared. Faint metallic shadows gliding in low orbit. Unmarked, silent, invisible to radar, only visible when sunlight hit their edges, forming outlines of massive shapes, like ships built for a war that had not yet begun. The Council tried to scan them, but every attempt failed. Their signals bent, reflected, erased, and on every corrupted file, a faint human voice whispered through static, "Treaty broken." Nothing else, no threat, no emotion, just those words. The Council, desperate to regain control, sent a second investigation fleet, 5 destroyers and 2 carriers to secure the Sol system and prove to the galaxy that humanity posed no threat. They entered orbit above Earth with arrogance, broadcasting peace declarations and authority claims. But no one answered, and as they moved into position, their screens began to glitch, the blue sphere of Earth below flickering between day and night in seconds. As if the planet's own rotation was distorting, one captain shouted over comms, "The planet, it's not stable, our sensors can't lock," another screamed. "It's not the planet, it's our systems." Then all 7 ships went dark at once. Days later, one of the carriers was found drifting far beyond the moon. Every crew member gone, their suits left in the corridors, life support still running, engines humming quietly. Inside the bridge, someone had written on the glass viewport with a trembling hand, "We heard them sing." The words sent chills through every species in the Council, because humans were known for singing in war, for turning destruction into rhythm and grief into sound, but no one had heard them sing since the truce, and now, after the silence, the stars themselves seemed to hum faintly with echoes of human voices. Soft, layered, mournful, not mechanical but alive, detected in radio frequencies buried under static, repeating in patterns that translated to one message: "We do not speak for Earth, Earth speaks for us." The Council's leaders panicked. They convened an emergency summit. Their brightest scientists, their most powerful admirals, all gathered to understand what was happening. The Aeltheran Prime Minister slammed his claws on the table, shouting that humanity must have built secret weapons. "They never disarmed," he hissed. "They hid their fleet underground." But the Drolith representative shook her head, her silver eyes dim. "No fleet moves without fuel. No engines burn without signal. And yet they do not move by engines. They move by silence," she whispered. "I think Earth itself is doing this, but no one believed her. They couldn't, not because it wasn't possible, but because it meant admitting that the humans had built something beyond understanding, something that could outlast even their extinction." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Colonies began receiving strange transmissions in human languages, short cryptic phrases sent through civilian networks. Messages like, "The treaty is sacred," "Do not come closer," and "You cannot contain the soil that remembers." The Council declared them hoaxes, but their origin was traced to deep within Sol, to regions no probe could penetrate, and ships sent to investigate simply vanished, leaving behind only faint echoes in their last transmissions, whispers like breathing, heartbeats through metal, one captain reported before disappearing. "It feels like the stars are listening." Then his line cut forever. The tension grew unbearable, and the Council finally decided to deploy a full-scale occupation fleet around Earth. This time not for diplomacy but dominance. They wanted to show power, to remind the humans who ruled the galaxy. They sent 120 ships armed with the newest tech, their formations shining across the night sky like a net of stars. But as they approached Earth, something began to happen to their fleet. Not from attack, not from missiles or lasers, but from inside. Their reactors dimmed, their communication arrays overloaded with a single pulse. Every ship's AI spoke in human voice, saying the same thing simultaneously. "You broke the treaty." Then the ships began to drift, lights fading, engines cooling as if drained of life. The crew screamed. Systems melted, and before any distress call could escape, the entire armada vanished from sensors, leaving only silence. The same silence that had started it all. On Earth, the oceans moved restlessly, waves rising higher than ever before, and beneath the Pacific, something enormous opened its eyes. A sound rolled through the planet's core, so deep it shook the magnetic field. It was not mechanical, not thunder, it was Earth itself breathing, the quiet one. The sentinel buried since the last war had awakened, and its pulse echoed through the crust, spreading through every planet in Sol like a heartbeat returning to life. The humans didn't speak, they didn't have to. The world itself had begun to respond. Slow, deliberate, merciless. The Council's ships that tried to flee found their path twisted, navigation leading them in circles until they burned their own fuel. The universe began to realize the truth. The humans didn't build weapons that needed to move. They built a world that remembered, a planet that waited, a silence that punished. And as the light from Earth began to flicker in the Council's telescopes, like the blink of a living eye, everyone understood. The treaty had not just been broken, it had been buried, and now the Earth itself was digging it up. When the Council finally realized the scale of what was happening, it was already far too late. Their fleets were vanishing, their probes were dying, and yet there were no explosions, no debris, no signs of combat, just silence swallowing every vessel that entered human space. Panic spread through the high chambers of the Galactic Senate, every species blaming the other. The Aeltheran delegates accused the Drolith generals of sabotage. The Serene ministers claimed it was a human virus infecting their systems, but none of their excuses explained the strange phenomenon that began spreading across the galaxy. Star systems far beyond Sol started experiencing electrical storms in space, light distortions shaped like waves, and on the surface of every disturbance, the same image appeared for a fraction of a second. A blue sphere wrapped in clouds. The image of Earth, flickering like a ghost across alien skies. Every time someone tried to scan it, their data vanished, replaced by a single line of code written in human language. The Earth remembers. The Council ordered all records of the Treaty of Sol sealed, trying to erase the memory of it, but the act only made things worse. Their data archives began rewriting themselves, altering historical logs, and everywhere they tried to delete the word Earth, it appeared somewhere else, embedded in encryption layers, appearing on public terminals burned into star maps, and even whispered through translation implants, as though the word itself had learned to live. People across thousands of worlds began reporting dreams, humans standing in fields of fire, looking at the stars, silent, waiting, not attacking, not speaking, only watching. The scientists called it mass hysteria, but the soldiers who had fought in the last human war knew the feeling. They said the silence before human retaliation always felt like this. Heavy, endless, unblinking. Meanwhile, inside the Council's deep core command centers, chaos turned into fear. Admiral Cyrex, a veteran of the original Sol War, stood before a massive display showing the solar system completely dark. Not a single signal escaping. "They've done something impossible," he muttered. "No system can block this much data." But his aide, trembling, whispered, "Admiral, what if they didn't block it? What if they erased it?" The admiral froze because the idea was madness, and yet the evidence was right there. The entire system was blank, like a hole in reality, nothing in, nothing out. No readings, no reflections, no gravitational anomalies. As if the entire system had folded in on itself. And then from the darkness a single signal emerged, weak but clear, transmitted directly to the Council's headquarters. A human voice speaking calmly in perfect galactic standard. Article 1 of the Treaty of Sol has been broken. Response is active. The message ended. No coordinates, no source, just that one sentence. And when they tried to trace it, it came not from within the solar system, but from inside their own network. The Council's mainframe was infected, not by virus, not by hack, but by something alive, something that used their own systems as an echo chamber. The AI cores began malfunctioning, reciting human phrases they couldn't understand. The entire command grid crashed within hours, leaving the galaxy leaderless. But amid the chaos, the transmissions didn't stop. They spread, and for the first time in history, the stars themselves seemed to hum with a human voice, deep, layered, soft, and yet commanding, like the sound of the ocean before a storm. Across the core worlds, people started hearing it through their own machines, through power lines, through the hum of reactors, even through the air. A sound that made hearts slow and metal resonate. It was a voice that spoke without words, a rhythm that said, "We know, we see, we remember." Back in Sol, the truth began to reveal itself. The probe footage that did manage to return showed something that defied all logic. On the far side of the moon, a massive structure had appeared, black as space itself, stretching for hundreds of kilometers, pulsing faintly with blue light. Every scan failed to determine its composition. But one thing was clear. It wasn't new, it had been there all along, buried beneath the surface since before the treaty. Now awake, the Council's analysts called it an anomaly, but the humans had a name for it whispered in their old archives. The Quiet One, a planetary defense construct built not as a weapon, but as a living guardian linked to Earth's magnetic and atmospheric systems, built to defend when humanity could not. It was never activated during the last war because humanity had signed the truce, but now that the truce was broken, it was awake. The next event came 3 days later, when the Council's remaining patrol fleet near Pluto detected movement, massive gravitational ripples emerging from the darkness beyond Neptune. They tried to adjust scanners, but every instrument malfunctioned at once. The captain of the fleet, an old warrior who had fought against Earth centuries ago, recorded the last visual feed before the signal cut, a vast shape emerging from shadow, so large it blocked the stars behind it. Not a ship, but something older, darker, its surface rippling with storm clouds. The captain whispered his last words before the feed died. "It's not them coming for us. It's the planet itself." Then static. Across the galaxy, panic turned to disbelief because one by one, Council ships stationed in human space were simply erased. Their beacons vanished, their trajectories forgotten, and no debris was ever found. Yet for every ship lost, a new star appeared in the night sky, blue, small, faint, positioned exactly where the ship had been destroyed. Astronomers realized they weren't stars. They were reflections, illusions, a phenomenon generated by the same distortion surrounding Earth. But no one could explain how it was possible. The human silence had become a mirror, reflecting everything back at those who dared to look. Then came the storm, invisible but unstoppable, spreading through the galaxy like a wave of thought, a pulse of light that carried no heat, no destruction, only truth. When it passed over a planet, every communication device flickered to life, broadcasting human faces, not soldiers or politicians, just people, farmers, doctors, teachers, children, each one staring silently into the camera. Behind them burned the ruins of Mars, and after a moment, a single sentence appeared beneath each face in 100 alien languages. Treaty broken. Memory restored. The message lasted less than a minute before every screen went black. But that minute was enough to terrify a million worlds. Enough to make every empire remember the one thing they had all tried to forget, that humanity didn't need words to speak, or armies to fight. They only needed patience, and patience was the one thing they had learned best in their years of exile. As the light faded and the last echoes of the signal disappeared, the galaxy held its breath again, waiting for the humans to speak, to demand vengeance or war. But no message came. The silence returned heavier than before until, far away on an observation station orbiting a dying star, a lone scientist stared out at the void and whispered the truth that everyone feared. "They're not talking," she said, "because they already answered." Beneath the surface of the moon, in a labyrinth of tunnels carved before the Treaty of Sol was ever signed, the heartbeat of humanity began to thunder again, silent and unseen. Deep under layers of stone and metal, a chamber that hadn't been opened in generations flickered to life. Lights humming, air shifting, ancient machines breathing for the first time in 100 years. A figure stood at the center of it all, Commander Arik Hale, the last surviving officer of the Terran Defense Network. Frozen in stasis since the end of the war, his eyes opened slowly as the systems around him awakened, and as he looked into the holographic displays filling the air, he understood instantly what had happened. He saw the images of burning colonies, of the Council's fleets breaking orbit over Mars, and his voice, quiet and low, broke the silence. "They broke it," he said, his tone not of anger but of inevitability. "They always do." All around him, automated systems began activating. Uploading files marked "Do Not Engage" and "Final Contingency," codes written long before his time, orders sealed by the original founders of the treaty. The system's mechanical voice spoke softly. "Containment protocol, Quiet 1 activation sequence in progress," and as he turned toward the main viewport, the ground trembled faintly beneath his feet. Outside, across the moon's gray horizon, the dust began to move. Slow at first, like a wind that had no direction, then faster, swirling in perfect circles as massive metal plates rose from beneath the surface. Structures taller than mountains, buried for centuries, rising again under invisible command. They connected together in precise mechanical rhythm, forming an enormous ring around the moon's equator, glowing lines running across its surface like veins. This was the Quiet One, the same construct the galaxy thought was myth, the same sentinel that the humans promised would never wake. But it was not a weapon of fire, it was a weapon of will, its power not to destroy but to command, its sensors linked to every frequency, every magnetic line, every pulse within the solar system, and as it rose, the planet below, Earth itself, seemed to respond. Storms twisting above its oceans, lightning crossing continents, not random but synchronized, like heartbeat and breath aligning for the first time in a century. The Council's remaining fleets, hovering at the edge of Sol, detected the anomaly immediately. Their instruments went wild, every compass spinning, every reading unstable, and when they tried to communicate, they heard something impossible. A whisper through their channels, faint but unmistakable, human voices counting down from 10, calm, steady, unified. The captains panicked, ordering retreats, but it was too late. At 0, the moon pulsed, a single flash of blue-white light spreading outward like ripples in water. No explosion, no shockwave. Yet every alien ship felt the impact. Their engines shut down instantly, their power drained, and their communications wiped clean, screens replaced with a single line of text. "Treaty violation acknowledged." Response in progress. The Council's admirals screamed for explanation, but none came, because their ships were now adrift, dead in space, their fleets silenced by a weapon that didn't fire bullets or beams. It simply erased motion, nullified energy, and turned the void itself against them. On Earth, the people didn't cheer. They didn't even speak. They just watched the skies as the auroras began to change color, glowing not green or red, but deep electric blue, reflecting off the clouds like ocean waves, and old veterans standing on rooftops whispering prayers, children pointing at the heavens asking what the light meant, and their parents couldn't answer. Because even they didn't know if this was vengeance or protection, only that the world was awake again, the same world that had once taken the brunt of every alien invasion, and still stood unbroken, now breathing again as though remembering who it was, far above. The Quiet One system synchronized with Earth's magnetosphere, transmitting energy pulses invisible to the eye but strong enough to rewrite the sky itself. Satellites that had been dormant for decades came online one after another, their signals forming a network so vast it wrapped around the planet like a second atmosphere. From the outside, the Earth began to glow faintly under its new shield. A perfect sphere of pale blue light, silent but alive. The Council tried again to send reinforcements, their new fleet of warships entering Sol through the outer rim. But as soon as they crossed Neptune's orbit, their systems began to fail again. Their weapons jammed, their navigation froze, and then, for the first time since the war, they saw it, human ships black and silent, emerging from the shadow of Saturn's rings. Not hundreds, but thousands, massive, angular, their hulls inscribed with names from history: Titan's Promise, Nova Dawn, Eclipse, Redemption, ships thought destroyed in the last war now reborn, their engines glowing faintly with blue plasma that didn't shimmer like flame but pulsed like a heartbeat. They formed into formation without a word. No comms, no signatures, only silent synchronization, like one organism made of steel and fury. And as the alien fleet watched, their sensors began to pick up the impossible. Each human ship was broadcasting the same code, repeating endlessly, Article 1 enforced. Inside the council chambers, light years away, fear turned to horror because they understood now. The humans had not broken their promise. They had honored it too literally. They had kept the peace so long as the treaty was respected. But the moment the council violated it, the humans didn't declare war. They didn't send diplomats. They simply handed control back to the systems built to ensure their survival. Systems that answered only to one directive: protect Earth at all costs. The Council's own records revealed fragments of an old file, Project Echo, the last line of defense from the old Terran wars, rumored to have connected human consciousness into their planetary defense network, merging the minds of soldiers and scientists with machines so that even in death, they would keep watch. And now those minds had awoken, their voices flowing through the frequencies like ghosts, unseen, unstoppable. The alien fleets that dared to approach were erased, not with fire or destruction, but with stillness. Their ships simply stopped moving, their crews frozen mid-breath, their power gone, left drifting through the void like monuments to arrogance. And then something else began to happen. Their ships' black boxes started broadcasting again, sending one final transmission to the Council. Not in alien code, but in human voice, calm and soft. You promised peace and we gave you silence. You broke it. Now we will give you silence again. That message repeated through the galaxy, echoed in every relay, every broadcast channel, until it reached even the farthest colonies. And by the time it faded, the entire galaxy had gone still. The stars above Earth flickered faintly, as though the universe itself had blinked. On the moon, Commander Arik Hale stood before the glowing map of the system, watching as every alien ship disappeared one by one from the display, his hands shaking not with triumph but with sorrow. We didn't start this, he said quietly. We only remembered, beside him, the AI core that ran the Quiet One flickered, its voice neither male nor female but deeply human. Memory is defense, Commander, it replied, and peace without memory is only silence. Hale closed his eyes, his voice barely a whisper. Then let them remember forever. Outside, the Earth shone brighter than it ever had, surrounded by a shield of living light. And for the first time since the galaxy had decided to cage humanity, it felt something new. Fear, not of human rage, but of what waited beneath their calm. The realization that when they broke the human treaty, they had not just awakened a nation, but the soul of a world that spoke through silence. And the Earth's answer had only just begun. The Council's grand armada gathered on the edge of Sol like a tidal wave of steel. 10,000 ships from every major empire, their hulls reflecting the light of distant suns, their captains swearing to reclaim their honor. They called it Operation Dawnstrike, a name meant to symbolize cleansing, as if humanity were a stain to be erased, not realizing that the very act of assembling such power so close to Earth was an invitation to something far worse. The command channels buzzed with confidence, the same arrogance that had once led them to underestimate humans centuries before. We strike fast, we strike clean, said Admiral Vorn of the Aelthar Dominion. One decisive blow and the planet burns, his officers nodded, believing it because they had to. But beneath the speeches there was unease. A feeling they couldn't name, like the silence pressing against their minds wasn't just distance, it was listening. They didn't know that the Quiet One, buried deep within the moon's core, was already watching them, its sensors extending beyond light, beyond time, through the same void where human satellites had once sung, each pulse of energy mapping their entire fleet like prey outlined in shadow. The machine said nothing. Humanity said nothing. Even Earth's magnetic field seemed still, waiting. And that waiting was what broke their courage first. The first sign came in the middle of the assembly when every comm system in the Armada flickered. Screens flashing, lights dimming, every ship hearing the same sound, a low heartbeat, slow and steady, faint but endless, reverberating through their hulls as if the universe itself had grown a pulse. The captains froze, thinking it was interference. But when the technicians tried to locate the source, they found nothing. It wasn't a transmission, it was everywhere. In the static, in the wiring, in the hum of their own reactors. Admiral Vorn ordered silence across the channel. "Ignore it," he barked. But the voice that answered wasn't his crew. It was something else. Soft, human, whispering through the static. "Do you remember what you promised?" The sound made the bridge go cold. Vorn snarled, ordering his gunners to prepare for launch. "They're taunting us, trace it," he shouted. But before anyone could respond, the navigation lights flickered again, and on every radar, hundreds of signals appeared all at once, surrounding the fleet in a perfect ring formation. No energy readings, no engine trails, just shadows in the void. The same shadows the Council's scouts had reported months ago. Ghost ships, human ships, silent and endless. The first gun fired, a plasma round from the alien battleship Crusader's wing. The shot burned through space and vanished into the dark. No impact, no echo, it was like shooting into a black ocean. The second shot followed, then a third, and then every ship began firing. The sky erupted in light, beams and torpedoes filling the void. Explosions flashing brighter than stars. But when the light faded, nothing was there. The human fleet hadn't moved, hadn't fired, hadn't even flinched. They just stood there, silent and watching, until one of them finally answered. The largest of the shadows illuminated for a moment, and the name on its hull became visible. HNS Arcadia, a ship thought destroyed in the First Sol War. The same ship that had vanished defending Luna centuries ago. Its hull blackened but intact. And from it came a transmission so powerful it bypassed every encryption the Council had. A voice, calm, cold, undeniably human. "The treaty is not words, it's memory," the voice said. "And memory does not die." Then the Quiet One acted. The moon pulsed with energy, invisible but colossal, a shockwave that didn't explode but rippled through the vacuum, bending the rules of space itself. Every alien ship felt it at once, the controls freezing, their weapons shutting down, their engines reversing direction. The commanders screamed for overrides, but their ships ignored them, turning slowly toward one another, aligning into strange geometrical formations. No one knew what was happening until the readings came in. The fleet's own energy cores were synchronizing, hundreds of reactors beating together like hearts. And then one by one they began to overload. No explosions, no fire, just silence as each vessel dimmed, its hull cooling, its systems going cold. And drifting away into darkness, the Quiet One hadn't needed to destroy them. It simply made them stop existing as threats, turning their fire into stillness, their life into echo. And for every alien ship that went dark, the light of Earth grew brighter, as if absorbing what they lost. Back on the Council's capital world, chaos broke loose. Live feeds showed thousands of ships dying without battle, disappearing without sound, their admirals losing contact, their families watching in horror as entire fleets blinked out of existence like candles snuffed by wind. The Council tried to send emergency orders, but every channel failed. And when their own communication arrays flickered to life again, a face appeared on every screen. Not a soldier, not a politician, but a young human child, maybe 10 years old, standing in front of an endless ocean. Wind in her hair, she looked straight into the camera and spoke, her voice soft but unbreakable. "You broke the promise," she said. "Earth remembers." And Earth answers, then the feed cut. Leaving only the sound of waves and wind, every Council world went silent. Because deep down they all knew, the humans weren't sending a threat. They were sending truth, and the truth was worse than war. In orbit above Earth, the human fleet still didn't move. They didn't need to. The alien remnants scattered, their ships drifting powerless, their lights fading into the dark. From above, the planet looked serene, blue and calm, its clouds swirling like soft smoke. But under those clouds, the Earth's surface pulsed with faint lines of light, patterns only visible from orbit, massive circuits glowing across continents, connecting oceans to mountains to cities. The planet itself was alive, the old defense network fully awakened, not just in machines but in the soil, in the gravity, in the rhythm of the world. The Quiet One had merged with the planet, becoming the voice of the Earth itself, and through it, humanity had found a way to speak without speaking, to fight without killing, to end a war without starting another. The alien survivors drifted in silence, staring at the glowing world they had tried to cage, and one captain, shaking, whispered into her dead radio. "What are they?" Her co-pilot, voice trembling, answered, "They're home." And that was the last thing recorded before their signal vanished into static. Back on the moon, Commander Eric Hale stood before the control console, watching as the enemy signatures disappeared from the system map. His eyes filled with both relief and grief. "They'll never understand," he muttered. "We didn't want this." The AI beside him flickered softly. "Understanding was never their gift," it replied. "But remembering is ours." Outside the viewport, Earth shone brighter than ever, its light reaching far beyond its system, touching the cold emptiness between the stars like a whisper carried on wind. And across the galaxy, those who once mocked humanity finally bowed their heads in silence, because they had seen the truth with their own eyes. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet their silence had become the loudest weapon in the universe, and in that silence, the galaxy finally learned what it meant when the Earth answered without words. The Council's surviving worlds no longer celebrated dawn. Every sunrise felt like judgment. From the ruins of their fleets came whispers of a human storm, silent, endless, and alive. On Earth, the skies remained calm, oceans soft and blue as though nothing had happened. But deep beneath the Pacific, the Quiet One pulsed faintly with the rhythm of the planet. Its awareness spread through every magnetic line and every whisper of wind. Listening, recording, remembering. Humanity had not spoken since the war began. They didn't need to. The Earth itself had become their voice. The Council gathered in desperation, their leaders trembling beneath the lights of their dying chambers. "We cannot fight what does not fight back," said the serene Chancellor, his crystalline eyes wide with dread. "They are not waging war, they are holding a mirror." But the Draenor general roared in fury, his claws scraping the marble table. "No mirror can destroy fleets," he shouted. Yet every sensor across the galaxy proved otherwise. Ships near Sol flickered and vanished. Planets on the border lost power for days. Satellites rebooted, broadcasting human words that no one could stop. "We do not speak." We remember. Back on Earth, humans watched the sky and said nothing. Factories hummed in rhythm with the tides, their machines guided by algorithms older than the war itself. Above the clouds, the Graveborn fleet drifted like shadows guarding the silence. Commander Arik Hale stood in the control room of the moon's core, his reflection glowing in the blue light of the planetary network. "They think this is war," he murmured. The AI responded softly, its tone more human than machine. "To them, everything they cannot control is war." Hale looked toward the planet below, his eyes tired but steady. "Then let them drown in peace." Outside, the auroras grew stronger, ribbons of blue fire dancing across the stratosphere, visible even from alien telescopes millions of miles away. Across those telescopes, scientists whispered of the impossible, an energy field pulsing with coherent patterns, mathematical structures repeating in perfect rhythm, as if the planet itself were sending messages in the language of light. And when translated, those patterns spelled the same phrase over and over: "Treaty broken." Response complete, awaiting understanding. On the Council's core worlds, panic turned into hysteria. Whole populations fled to underground shelters, convinced Earth had unleashed a weapon that would end all life. The High Speaker stood before his shattered assembly and screamed, "They have turned their silence into domination. They have made the void obey!" But his aides could only stare at the broadcasts streaming across every world. Images of Earth's oceans, vast and endless, with a child's voice narrating softly in every alien tongue. "We gave you peace. You mistook it for weakness." The message repeated for hours, and by the time it ended, half the Council had resigned. No one wanted to fight ghosts that spoke through the wind. Meanwhile, the ships still trapped within Sol's quarantine field drifted quietly, untouched but forever powerless. Their crews reported dreams of standing on alien shores, feeling sand under their feet, hearing waves that spoke words they couldn't comprehend. They woke with tears and the taste of salt on their tongues, though none had ever been near an ocean. The Quiet One had reached into their minds and shown them what they'd destroyed. When the next solar flare erupted from Earth's sun, it did not behave like nature. It split into 7 waves of blue light, each moving toward a different corner of the galaxy, carrying something far more than radiation: data, memory, truth. Wherever the waves touched, the stars flickered, and alien worlds saw fragments of humanity's history projected in their skies, cities rising and falling, soldiers standing in mud, mothers holding children beneath burning heavens, and finally the image of the Treaty of Sol being signed. Human and alien hands clasped together, the voice of a human woman saying, "We will honor this forever." If you do the same. The waves passed, leaving behind silence deeper than before. Priests called it divine punishment. Scientists called it impossible. The people called it justice. On Mars, the dust finally settled. The ruins of Colony 9, where the first shots had been fired, began to glow under the starlight. No one was alive there, and yet the atmosphere shimmered faintly with static. If any ship had dared approach, its sensors would have recorded the sound of wind carrying whispers, human words too soft to translate. From orbit, the markings carved into the ground became visible again, stretching for miles across the desert. We remember the treaty. It was not vengeance written there, but grief. The galaxy could not understand the difference. Far beneath the moon, Commander Hale stood before the central chamber of the Quiet One, its massive structure pulsing with light. "They're still afraid," Lyra said quietly beside him. Hale shook his head. "They should be ashamed, not afraid." He placed his hand on the console, the metal warm like skin. "The response cycle is ending," the AI confirmed. "Shall we stand down?" Hale closed his eyes, the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders. No more attacks, no more deaths. Let the silence stand. The AI hesitated for a heartbeat, then spoke softly. "It will echo forever." Outside, the moon's surface dimmed, its glow fading as the Quiet One went into dormancy. The Graveborn fleet lowered its power signatures and slipped back into the dark. Their mission complete, and as the universe quieted, the Council's last transmission reached Earth, a simple plea. "What do you want?" It traveled through space, through static, through the remnants of war until it reached the planet that had said nothing for so long. The ocean stirred once, clouds twisted over the continents. And then came the reply, not in words, not in language, but in a pulse that rippled across the stars, turning night into dawn on every world for a heartbeat. It carried emotion, not sound, regret, memory, resolve. And when it faded, the translation that appeared across alien screens read only 3 words: learn from silence. After that, no more fleets approached Earth. No one dared send ships into Sol again. The galaxy rebuilt itself around the memory of what had happened, forming new laws, new oaths, new kinds of fear. Children of alien species grew up learning of the planet that spoke without speaking, and poets across worlds began calling the humans the quiet storm. Humanity did not expand, did not conquer. They simply endured, guardians of their world, protectors of the memory that bound all civilizations together. In the archives of 1,000 worlds, carved in stone or etched in light, one line remained forever untouched. When they broke the human treaty, the Earth answered without words. By the time the last wave of light faded from the stars, the galaxy had changed forever. The councils that once ruled 1,000 worlds had fallen silent, their banners taken down, their fleets reduced to drifting monuments. And across the void, Earth floated alone, quiet and blue. Wrapped in the faint glow of its living shield, no one dared cross its borders anymore. Not traders, not explorers, not soldiers. Because all who approached felt it. The hum of something vast beneath the calm. A heartbeat too slow and too deep to belong to any machine. The pulse of a planet that remembered. Generations passed, and the story of the Treaty of Sol became legend, whispered to alien children as a warning. Told in hushed voices around fires and flickering lights. They said the humans had no gods because they had become one. They said their silence could erase empires, that their oceans whispered the truth to those who listened, and that if you ever looked at Earth too long, it would look back, watching, waiting, never forgetting. On the moon, where the Quiet One slept again, Commander Arik Hale stood in the memorial chamber, an old man now, his hair silver, his face lined with both sorrow and pride. He gazed out the viewport toward the Earth below. The world he had protected not with war but with memory. The planet's surface shimmered faintly, lines of light tracing the continents like veins of life. Hale whispered softly to the empty air, "They finally understand." His voice carried the weight of centuries. Peace isn't given, it's remembered. Behind him, the AI's soft voice echoed through the chamber, gentle and eternal. The transmissions from the outer colonies confirm it. "Commander, they have begun rebuilding, not to conquer, but to remember." Hale smiled faintly, the kind of smile only a tired soul could carry. "Then it worked," he said. "Our silence was enough." He closed his eyes for a moment, hearing the faint hum of the world below, the rhythm that had once terrified galaxies. Now calm and steady like a lullaby, across the galaxy, monuments to the lost fleets were built, not of glory but of warning, massive stones engraved with human words translated into every language. A promise broken is a wound that never heals. And beneath it, the symbol of the Treaty of Sol, a hand reaching across stars forever frozen before the grasp. Alien leaders visited those monuments in silence, their people leaving offerings of light and soil, praying not for forgiveness but for understanding. And though no message ever came from Earth, every so often the stars above those worlds flickered faintly blue, and the priests said it was the humans acknowledging them, not with words but with memory. On Earth itself, humanity had changed. They no longer built ships to leave. They built towers to listen. Their cities were quiet, filled with gardens and wind. No more armies, no more weapons, only watchful machines that hummed beneath the waves, ensuring that no one ever forgot what had been paid for peace. Children grew up learning the story not as a tale of war, but as a lesson in trust. Teachers told them. The galaxy broke a promise, and we answered not with hate, but with silence. And every year, on the day the treaty had been signed, the world fell still for 1 hour, no sound, no engines, no speech, just the wind, the waves, and the heartbeat of Earth itself echoing through the stillness, reminding everyone why they endured. Far beyond the edge of known space, explorers from new civilizations sometimes picked up faint signals, rhythmic pulses that didn't match any natural source. They called them ghost frequencies, soft, repeating patterns that sounded almost like breathing. When decoded, the pulses formed words in ancient Terran binary. Short messages drifting through the black. We kept our word. Do you? Most ignored it, too afraid to respond, but some tried, sending back messages of apology, of curiosity, and though no reply ever came, their worlds often reported strange auroras in their skies afterward. Soft blue light moving like water, as if the Earth's answer was not spoken, but seen. In time, the council worlds faded, replaced by a loose alliance of free colonies that swore never to repeat the arrogance of their ancestors. They called their pact the Covenant of Silence. Its first article a single sentence carved into crystal. Peace is the loudest voice of all, and at its heart, a promise never to invade, never to break trust, never to speak with deception, for they had learned what happened when promises died. And though Earth never joined the covenant, its shadow stretched across every page of its law. Decades later, as Hale's life drew to an end, he sat once more beneath the lunar dome, looking at the planet below, his breathing shallow but his eyes bright. "It's beautiful," he murmured, "the way silence shines." His AI companion flickered beside him, its voice soft as the wind. "Would you like me to record your final words, Commander?" Hale smiled weakly. "No," he whispered. "The world already knows them." And as his eyes closed, the lights around the chamber dimmed. The quiet one hummed one last time, sending a pulse through the moon's surface, down through Earth into the heart of its oceans, a single echo that reached the stars. Not of power, not of threat, but of peace, the final message of a species that refused to be forgotten. And in that pulse, the galaxy heard it again, the sound of Earth breathing, slow and endless, a song without words that carried the truth of everything they had lost and everything they had learned. For humanity had never sought revenge, only remembrance, and in that remembrance lay their final victory. A peace built not on dominance, but on memory. A silence that needed no voice, because it was written across every world, every heart, every shadow that had ever looked toward the blue planet and whispered its name. And so it was said for all time, across 1,000,000 worlds and 1,000 tongues, that when they broke the human treaty, the Earth answered without words, and the universe never dared to forget.